Thank you. Realize what an opportunity this is. Not only are students learning from what's happening here today, but adults are learning and relearning a lot of things. We had an earlier speaker talk about branding. What is your brand? And understand, as a meteorologist, my two words are atmospheric thermodynamics. Well, that doesn't mean a lot to you. Who is my hero? My original hero was a guy named Mr. Wizard. And unless you're very old, you probably don't know Mr. Wizard. But then came Bill Nye the Science Guy. But today, it's Kerry Emanuel. He is the top hurricane scientist at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. But I digress. We're here today to talk about no limits. And the title of my speech is, no matter what accomplishments you make, somebody helps you. And in Central Florida, we all have heard the term or the phrase, if you can dream it, you can do it, which is exactly what Walt Disney did. But what are some examples? For at least 100 years, if you wanted to talk to somebody else on this planet, you had to have one of these, a rotary telephone. I grew up with one in our house. And not only did you have to have one, but the person on the other end had to have one or you couldn't talk to them. When I was in the Navy, I was in Italy, and one time I wanted to talk to my parents in Indiana. You would go to a phone booth. Now in the United States, a phone booth was a payphone booth with one phone in it. But in Europe, a phone booth was a building about the size of a McDonald's or a fast food place, and inside were nothing but rows of payphones, all numbered 1 through 50, let's say. And you would go up to the counter and you would tell them what you wanted to call, and you would pay for the phone call, and you would sit down and wait. And eventually, over the PA system, they would say, Mr. Bartuska, your call is ready in booth 24. You would go to booth 24 and pick up the payphone and be able to talk to your parents or whoever you were calling. But like all things, this evidently got to be old, and somebody had the thought, the vision that said, at that time, phones all went through the wire and television all went through the air. Everyone had an antenna for their television. Everyone had copper wires going in their house for their phone. But somebody said, what if we switch them? What if we start making phones go through the air and television go through the wire like cable television? And then came Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs' vision was, wait a minute, what if I come up with a device that not only has a telephone in it, but also has a computer, also contains a computer and also contains a camera. So now we can talk, take pictures, and surf the internet. Of course, the internet didn't exist then. So that's what Steve Jobs gave us. Another person, another motivating, inspirational person was Althea Gibson. Althea Gibson was the first African-American woman to win at Wimbledon in 1957. She became even more famous when she wrote her autobiography, I Always Wanted to Be Somebody. And her saying, no matter what accomplishments you make, somebody helps you, is on posters, it's on calendars, and it's at Epcot in the American Venture. Well, then there was Haley Mia, at age 14, the youngest singer to place in the top 5 in the history of The Voice. Who would have thought? Who would have known? Who would have thought? Wrong button. And of course, there was Neil Armstrong, a Purdue engineer like myself, who went in the Navy like myself, but he became an officer, became a pilot, became a test pilot, flew the F-15, and eventually went to work for NASA and became our first man to walk on the moon. How much more inspiration can we get? So where do we go from here? Well, we've already heard some references to Alice in Wonderland, but another situation in the book was Alice came upon the Cheshire Cat in the tree, and Alice said to the cat, "Cat, which road should I take?" And the cat said to Alice, "Well, that depends where you want to go." And he said, "Where do you want to go?" And Alice said, "I don't really know." And the cat said, "Well, then it probably doesn't matter, does it?" But it does matter. Your life, your career, what you're going to do, what contribution you're going to make to this world matters. But what if you don't know? Now, some people know right now they want to be an accountant, or they want to be a lawyer, or they want to be a doctor, or they want to be a nurse. But what if you have no idea, and that's not unusual. I was a teacher for 15 years. A great place to go is the Department of Labor Occupational Outlook Handbook. This used to be a book published every year. It cost $30. You had to get it every year to know the latest what was going on. But then the internet came along. Now it's free for anybody who wants to pull up the website. What's in there are all the major occupations, how much they pay, what you have to do to become that occupation, what the forecast is for that occupation. Is it going to be good for the future? Is it not going to be so good for the future? But jobs today usually don't just disappear, they transition into something else. For example, on the left we have farmer, P-H-A-R-M-E-R. Farming is becoming high-tech. I'm an agricultural engineer by training. Farming is becoming high-tech. Computers are running farm machinery, and agricultural is going vertical versus just horizontal. Self-driving car mechanic. I grew up working in a gas station in high school. I fixed cars all the time. But now they're totally full of electronics and software that didn't even exist when I was in high school. And space miner. We mine precious metals and minerals on Earth. Eventually, we're going to mine precious metals and minerals on the moon, on the Mars, other places. Somebody's going to have to do that. Some other predicted futuristic occupations. Space tourism guide. You're not only going to have to be a astronaut, you're going to have to know how to be a tourist, a tour guide, and talk to people and tell them what they're seeing and answer their questions. Life extension technician. We are on the cusp of being able to determine and make a decision how long we want to live. Do we want to live to 100? Do we want to live to 500? Somebody's got to help you make that decision. Virtual teacher. We've already had virtual teachers during COVID. Climate change reversal specialist. We know climate change is happening right now. Engineers and other people have to figure out how to stop it and reverse it. And space junk recycler. As a result of previous space missions, there's all kinds of spent rockets and things orbiting around the Earth that we know we've got to get out of orbit and do something with or bring back down to Earth. So your immediate goal, you've been hearing about goals throughout this whole thing, your immediate goal as a student, no matter what grade you're in, is number one, to get a high school diploma. Number two, most jobs, most interesting, well-paid jobs require a college degree or a career certificate, and then you will establish yourself in your career field. Okay, we're hanging up there. There we go. But you don't need to wait. You can act now. Are we getting a low battery? There we go. Remember what Althea Gibson said. No matter what accomplishments you're going to make, somebody's going to help you. And there's no reason to try and do it all on your own. So what does that mean? That means reaching out for help. The first way is reading books, reading magazines, reading things on the internet, watching YouTubes produced by people in the industry you want to work in. Number two, finding a mentor. What is a mentor? A mentor is somebody who's already where you want to go. If you want to be a lawyer, a mentor is someone who's already a lawyer and will share with you information you need to know. What's the best way to get there? What's the best way to prepare to pass the bar exam? Other things you can do, you've already heard about clubs and camps. There are robotics clubs, there are computer clubs, there are writing clubs, there are acting clubs. With camps, we have computer camps, we have acting camps, we have writing camps. There's all kinds of things you can get involved in now to start building your skills. And competitions. There is a scientific writing competition, and this girl was the winner, and that's Bill Nye presenting her with an award. And there are volunteer opportunities. If you want to be a nurse, you could become a volunteer at a hospital or at a nursing facility, all kinds of different volunteer opportunities. Now, you've also heard that there are going to be bumps in the road. Things are going to happen that are going to stop you or slow you down or make you think there's no way ahead. In the adult world, this is known as Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law states that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And just like in the game of Monopoly, sometimes you have to go backwards before you can go forwards. An example from my actual life, there we go. Right after high school, I joined the United States Navy with the idea of becoming a weather person, an aerographer's mate, meteorologist in the Navy. But guess what? After boot camp and taking all the tests, we found out there were no openings then for aerographers' mates. So the Navy said, based on your scores, we're going to train you to be an aircraft mechanic, and we're going to train you in a specialty area called aircraft safety equipment. That meant I maintained ejection seats, air conditioning systems, gaseous and liquid oxygen systems, and firefighting systems, other things, which actually helped me later on in life as an engineer, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. Did I give up? Nope. I continued to study meteorology on my own. I studied meteorology in college. I volunteered regularly with the Florida Governor's Hurricane Conference. I attended training at the National Weather Service. I taught meteorology in the public schools for about 15 years. I still teach marine meteorology for the Coast Guard, and I teach meteorology for the Air Force. I provide meteorology updates to the Florida Aviation Network, which is bringing this to you today. I recently completed my doctorate in emergency management, specializing in hurricanes, and I'm a member of the American Meteorological Society. The American Meteorological Society is a technical society, a technical organization. There are about 200 of them. There's one for accounting, there's one for law, there's one for medicine. There are all kinds of organizations that you can join right now, no matter what grade you're in. So what are some strategies for success to get you to where you want to go? Well, let's pretend we're talking to middle school students. You're about to get to high school. In high school, you've got to learn to manage your time. There's a term, time management. There's really no such thing as time management. You can't stop the earth from rotating. It's going to do it no matter what. What does that term, time management, really mean? It means learning to manage yourself to get done what you have with the time that you have. And that's something you will master in high school. Number two, don't compare yourself to others. You are totally unique. There's never been another person like you. There will never be another person like you. No one has the ability to make the contribution to society that you do. And finally, don't be afraid to ask questions. No matter what accomplishments you make, somebody will help you. Now, let's look ahead. Let's think ahead to college and plan in high school. In college, you got to get organized. Most of you will be on your own for the first time ever. Nobody's going to tell you when it's time to get up. Nobody's going to tell you that assignment's due. And if you have to repeat a course, you're going to have to pay for it again. In high school, everything was free, but in college, we have to pay for courses. You need to become an expert on the course requirements just so you never have to repeat them. And you can keep your grade point average up in case you want to go to graduate school. And meet with your professors. Introduce yourself to your professors. Tell them what you want to be and ask them for their advice. Okay, so you've graduated. Now you're going to turn your passion into a job. You're probably going to get an entry-level job, or you may start your own business. Congratulations, you're hired. You're on your first job. Now, in high school and college, you may have little jobs where you work in a fast food place or work in a gas station or a 7-Eleven, but now you're making real money, you have real responsibility, and hopefully you have an interesting job. Now what? Well, there are experts out there who do nothing but study successful people. They study astronauts, professional athletes, Olympic athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs, and they have found two things that they all agree on. Successful people will become what they think about. And what they think about, what we think about, is primarily what we read. Well, you've heard a lot today about what people need to do, about how much reading they need to do, but what does that really mean? Well, if I were to give you a mirror and ask you to look in the mirror and tell me what you see, most of you would say, well, I see me. I'd like you to consider an alternative answer. When you look in the mirror, what you really see is what you look like. But this is you. And that's why it really doesn't matter what color your skin is, whether you're tall or short, skinny or fat. It's what you put up here that matters. And when you read, that's what you're doing. You're building your mind, your brain. When you take psychology either in dual enrollment or as a college course, you're going to realize, you're going to be taught, that psychologists tell us we are the sum total of all our thoughts. The more you read, the more advantage you have to work with. So, remember Bill Gates. Bill Gates helped change the world of communication. Just think when you can't find your cell phone. That's how all of us started out. There was no such thing as cell phones. If you weren't home near a phone, you couldn't talk to anybody. And now you can talk just about anybody in the world 24/7. And Althea Gibson inspired millions of people and gave us this saying, no matter what accomplishments you make, somebody helps you. And Haley Mia, at 14, one of the top performers on The Voice. And Neil Armstrong. Somebody had to be the first one to walk on the moon. It just happened to be Neil Armstrong because he was ready. As I said, remember Althea Gibson, no matter what accomplishments you make, somebody helps you.